Guys, welcome to the Vlad Catcher Show, the #1 show for founders, execs, and entrepreneurs who are scaling their businesses. This video is presented by Browserbase, and we have an amazing interview for you today with its founder and CEO, Paul Klein, about how he created and scaled the business. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Good to meet everybody.
So tell us, Paul, what's the origin story? How did Browserbase come about?
Well, I've been working in technology my entire career. I actually started as an intern at Twilio during an IPO. Imagine that. You're beginning of your technology career at the end of a company as they're going public. But you're an intern, you have no equity. So you're sitting there at the IPO party wondering, well, I need to get into this. The next IPO, I need to be the founder of that company, right? So I saw this great technology company which did APIs for developers sending text messages, and spent a lot of time working in this category of company called an infrastructure company. Infrastructure companies are like AWS, where you're creating infrastructure for other companies to build on top of. And that idea felt very powerful to me. How can I enable other companies to build very powerful applications on top of my infrastructure or platforms? And the benefits of these businesses is that it's almost like an index fund. As more companies use your infrastructure, you benefit from their growth. So this whole category has always been very fascinating to me and really led to where we are now with Browserbase, which is building infrastructure that enables AI to browse the web. But it wasn't a straight shot. Of course, every journey in a career has a winding road, right? So I started at that as an intern at Twilio, came back full time, worked there for 3 years, scaling distributed systems, being an engineer. I was a software engineer, figuring out how I can work with systems that scale to hundreds of thousands of requests per second, and becoming the best engineer I possibly could. I knew by being a great engineer, I could build great technology and end up building an innovative company one day. After Twilio, I started my first company. It was called Stream Club. Stream Club was kind of like Canva for live streaming. We raised a small pre-seed, and my job was CTO. I wasn't the CEO, but I was taking my software engineering skills from my first company and working on Stream Club, making it easier for anybody to live stream. And what was interesting about this company was that I was, CTO, so I saw a lot of the things that were happening in technology. I was building a lot of technology, but I was also running a lot of the business. So I was understanding the business functions. Like I did all of our taxes, I did all the hiring, the onboarding paperwork, and it was very challenging to kind of run this company. I felt like there was many systems and processes that could be automated, but the software was all kind of bad. And save that for later because that was really inspiring for why I started Browserbase. While I was CTO of this company, I built some really special software. This software actually ran a browser in a cloud environment to help make it easier for our users to live stream. I won't get into too much of the technical details, but you can imagine that this browser in a cloud seemed kind of like a hack, but I got really good at working with this hacky piece of software. It was so good and so valuable that we eventually sold this company to another company called Mux. Mux was a video API company. We were a live streaming company. We sold to a bigger video API company. But once again, I was back in the infrastructure world. But now, instead of my company doing text messages as an API, we were doing video as an API. So I had kind of started the text message API company, started my own company, kind of worked, but we ended up selling it to the video API company. And you can imagine that, I've really found my niche building that infrastructure that I talked about kind of at the beginning of the story. After spending 2 years working at the video API company, I realized that I had this kind of combination of experience. I'd been a software engineer, I'd been the CTO of a startup, I had experience with this thing called a headless browser, and I knew that infrastructure was very important. And in 2023, I wrote an essay all about AI and the tools it needed to interact with our world. And I kind of imagined this future. The future of software is software doing work on our behalf. But a lot of the work that you and I do every single day happens in a web browser. If we wanted software or AI to work on our behalf, we need to give it the browser just like we have, and thus Browserbase was born. How do we enable AI to control browsers and solve this challenging problem, this infrastructure, where you can run browsers in the cloud alongside the AI agents that serve us every single day? So that's where Browserbase kind of came to be, but it really was a long journey of me building in infrastructure, starting my own company, understanding a certain type of technology called a headless browser, and then seeing the opportunity within AI to build this category-defining infrastructure company. And now Browserbase is 50 people strong in San Francisco. We've raised $65 million across a seed, Series A, and Series B from investors like Klein Perkins, Patrick Collison, the founder of Stripe, Guillermo Rauch, the founder of Vercel. We're surrounded by very talented people here in San Francisco, and we're powering really exciting companies like Clay or Vercel or Perplexity helping their AI agents browse. So it's been a long but short journey so far in our 2 years, and really my whole career to get to this moment. But we really are just getting started as this infrastructure company that will be powering many of the AI applications that happen in the future.
It's so exciting, Paul.
Thank you.
Can you tell us more about your products? Because I saw you guys have several products. Like, what are those products and what are the benefits that they have for businesses?
Our high level mission is to enable AI to interact with the internet, right? Reading and writing to websites. And why would you need that to happen, first of all? Well, you probably want your AI agent to be able to do some work for you, like maybe book that flight or download a file or maybe fill out a form. Let's say you're incorporating a business, you have to go to the state of Delaware and submit all those forms. It's not a really fun thing to do, but your AI agent can do that quite well. So the first thing you need is a browser that your AI agent can control. And that's what Browserbase is at its core. We're a infrastructure product where you can, using code, spin up a browser in a cloud environment and enable, your AI agent to control it. So Browserbase at its core is this infrastructure layer. We run many browsers at scale. And the reason why you'd want to use our browsers is because it's quite hard to run a browser. Browsers are not meant to run on servers like we do. They're meant to run on our laptops. So we overcome a lot of technological hurdles to make it so you could scale and run browsers easily in the cloud environment. And that's our infrastructure product. But of course, the infrastructure is not just enough. We could give you this browser functionality or these browsers, but you probably need a way to integrate them into your AI agent or integrate them into your software. That's why we built Stagehand. Stagehand is an open source browser automation framework. It makes it really easy for anybody who can code to type in some commands and have the browser take those actions on behalf of you. We built this to be a integration plane into the AI agents because it wasn't enough to have just the infrastructure. The infrastructure is like a database. You need to write SQL to talk to the database. Well, to control the browsers, you need to write Stagehand to talk to the browsers. So it's our open source framework. Finally, if this is all a little too technical for you, and you want to see the power of AI interacting with the internet, but you don't want to use code or infrastructure, we built a product called Director.ai. And Director is kind of like the Lovable or Bolt or V0 for automating the web. With a single prompt, you could type in a task, watch AI interact with one of our browsers, and output code to generate a repeatable script to automate something for you. We've seen people use this for looking up real estate listings in a certain county to figure out what's going on in the market soon, or helping verify somebody's credentials, like their nursing credentials, to make sure they actually are eligible to work at this company. Anybody can prompt a director and output useful browser automation scripts that you can run over and over and over again to help you automate tasks. We view it as a great high-level way for people to understand what we do because we understand that our products are very, very technical. So Director.ai is a great place to get started. If you're not really understanding what Browserbase does, if you start with Director, you'll see a lot of valuable things that we can do.
And I think what's also very helpful for folks is when they can imagine what problems they would have if they don't use your product. So that way, for businesses, if they're not using Browserbase, what problems would they face? I think because then it'll be very clear, right? Like, this is why I must have this product because I'll have these problems if I don't use it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're building any sort of new AI product and you integrate AI into your application, it has limited knowledge. Its knowledge is limited up until the point that it was trained. So if you want to enable AI to have new knowledge, recent knowledge, it needs to be able to browse the web, right? Now, that's just one step here. Being able to know things, being able to look up information, retrieve information, that's one capability that your AI agent should have to be useful. But the second part will be to be able to integrate or take action on that knowledge. Like I said, if you're building an AI agent that you actually want to have go do things for you, you need to give it the tools to do those things. And interacting, navigating, typing in information to fields, clicking buttons on a web page, these primitives are very useful for enabling your AI to actually take actions for you. And really, if you're building, an AI application, which many of us are these days, we're trying to bring AI into our businesses, there are going to be integration points where you won't be able to get native integrations. If you want to let your AI interact with your CRM, you might not have an API or what's called an MCP server, these protocols to connect your AI agents. They might not be available or they might not be sufficient. But almost all software has a browser interface, a website that you can connect to it with. And if you let your AI use the website, use the internet, it can actually interact with all the existing software that's out there. So really, it's like the most generic tool possible for AI. If you give your AI just a browser tool, it might be able to do just as much as if you gave it 20 other more specific tools. We really think it's the most universal tool for enabling AI to do useful things on the internet.
But does that mean pretty much every business that's building AI agents should use Browserbase?
It does. And we have customers across every single vertical, all the way from KYC and KYB, which means knowing your customer, banking companies that are looking up information about potential bankers, all the way to AI SDRs, people who are having AI go do sales research, like figure out how I could sell to this person. One of our customers is a dairy company in the middle of the United States that uses Browserbase to look up gas prices. Any work that a person can do online, AI can do for you using a browser. But you have to give it reliable browser infrastructure, reliable browser tools, and that's what we offer at Browserbase. It can seem a little crazy. Really, you can use Browserbase for anything. We're that horizontal. And I understand that that might cause people to be like, well, can I use it for this? The answer is almost always yes. If you can do something in a web browser, if you can do a task, your AI can do that task for you as long as you give it a browser tool to connect to.
Paul, in your product, it seems very sophisticated, meaning it seems like very like advanced technology, not like, something, they can build like quickly. How did you guys build this tech and what's under the hood?
Yeah, well, it is pretty sophisticated, and that's why we launched Director.ai. We wanted to make it as easy as possible for people to understand this because we're so excited. We really think that the amount of manual work that everyone does every day is going to go down dramatically. You're going to be given tools with a lot more leverage, where you can actually end up using these tools to go ahead and automate some of the painful tasks that you have every single day. But that is powered by a lot of interesting technology beneath the hood. So for Browserbase, we're running the same browser that you and I use every day in the cloud environment, but we do a lot on top of it to make sure your developers who are often implementing these features can understand what's happening. When you have a browser running on your computer, you can look at your browser, right? You can see what's happening on your laptop. But you have it running in a cloud environment, in a server, it's not as easy to go look over at the server and see what's happening. So we offer a lot of observability. You can actually see what happens in the browser. If you tell your AI agent to go buy some toothpaste and ends up buying a PS5, you want to know exactly what happened and go trace those steps. So being able to see every single action taken within the browser and understand why it took those actions is very useful for our customers to understand what's happening. Observability is really important. And the way we do observability is by modifying the browser to capture these logs and metrics that make it easy to surface them in a dashboard for customers using our browsers to understand what happened. Secondly, running browsers in the server in a server environment, those browsers can go anywhere on the internet. The internet is very dangerous. So how do we make sure we do it securely? If your AI agent is controlling a browser, we want to make sure we know where it goes and make sure it doesn't go places it shouldn't go. And if it does go somewhere bad, how do we make sure your information doesn't get leaked or violated? You may have seen these reports about prompt injection attacks against browser agents. What this means is some people might hide dangerous information within a web page to try and attack a browser agent. With Browserbase's cloud browsers, we sandbox all the browsers, which means that there's only information available to the browser that you want to give it. When you're using a desktop browser like a Perplexity Comet or a OpenAI Atlas, it has access to all of your information. With cloud browsers, you're only giving it limited information for the task it has at hand. So we think about observability and security as being two core parts of the browser infrastructure stack that really make it worthwhile for customers to build AI applications with remote browsing tools embedded in them. And all this technology is really powered by some of the complex distributed systems that we work on here at Browserbase every day. Last month, we did 92 years worth of browsing. If you add up every minute that browsing was happening, it was 92 years, almost a person's lifetime of browsing. And that kind of illustrates the scale of how much work Browserbase is doing with AI for human beings. Some of our largest customers are browsing, thousands and thousands of hours every day, taking actions, helping people do things. And I think that's really exciting because there's just so much time saved for people all across the world.
And what's holding customers back from using Browserbase? And I'm asking this because you guys have a free trial. That means they can experience the platform for free. You guys have a $20 plan. That means they can try the product, right, without paying, a lot of money. What's holding customers back from buying your product? And how do you guys overcome those objections whenever they say those objections to you?
Yeah, I'd say the two limiters on Browserbase's growth is really model quality, like the quality of the AI models, the large language models, as well as inspiration. So I'll talk about the model quality one. We've been spending a lot of time with AI labs to help make AI models better for browsing the internet. You may have seen our work with Google, where we did a Google DeepMind benchmarking of their most recent model, the computer use model. We worked directly with them to make sure that the model was going to browse very well on Browserbase's browser. And it released state-of-the-art results after we kind of went back and forth with that team. We're also working with other AI labs to ensure that if they're training new models, those models know how to interact with our browsers and go browse the web reliably. And model qualities continue to improve week after week after week. Gemini 3 just launched last week, and it scored state-of-the-art on our browser evaluations, which is really exciting because every time the model quality gets up, more use cases, more complex use cases become possible. So that's one thing that's going to drive our business forward. And the second one is certainly within our control. It's inspiration. That's why you and I are talking. How do we show more people this is possible? This is a very complex thing. In our business of infrastructure, it's rare that new categories of infrastructure get created. We all know what a database is. But you wouldn't have known what a database was 25 years ago. We don't all know what headless browsers are or browser infrastructure is, but I guarantee you 20 years from now, it's going to be an essential part of every application that's ever built. So we're kind of in the early days. We have to show people what's possible with this thing. And that's why we built Director.ai, because Director.ai lets anybody experience what's possible by typing in a prompt and seeing what you can or cannot automate. I'll tell you about one of our customers, Benny. So what Benny does is in the United States, people buy stuff with food stamps all the time, right? EBT, SNAP are types of food stamps that people will go buy food with. It turns out there's programs for getting rebates back. We want to encourage people to buy healthy food, right? So we'll actually give you a few dollars back if you buy a lot of vegetables or salads versus junk food. But the process of getting those rebates on your food stamps is really tedious and tiresome. You have to take your receipt, go to this government website, itemize the receipt on this form, submit it. You might see where I'm going with this. What if we could enable an AI browser agent to take my receipt and go get my rebate because I did buy my healthy food? Well, that's what Benny does. Benny does that with Browserbase powering that application. So they built a whole consumer application for taking a picture of your receipt, uploading it, and dispatching a browser to go get the rebate on your food stamp, enabling people to get money back easier than they already deserved. And I think that's like one really exciting use case that you wouldn't have ever thought about unless you were in the food stamps industry. But I'll tell you what, Vlad, there's thousands and thousands of use cases of tedious things that we aren't doing because we're lazy humans. We don't have time to do food stamps receipt all the time. And we shouldn't. We should let our AI do that for us. And the tools that Browserbase is building is really enabling you to create applications that will save you time. And that's the important nuance here. We are infrastructure. Because there are so many use cases, I couldn't even build applications to solve all of them if I had 1,000 people working at this company. Instead, I need to enable people like you, people like your viewers, who want to start businesses, who want to build companies. They can go automate something valuable today using Browserbase, and we can help power their really exciting business, their version of the Benny, where they may have some very specific tasks that they know that they can automate and do that as a service for others because they have some special expertise or knowledge that we don't have here at Browserbase. So we're excited to partner with those companies. We think that by being the infrastructure layer to power the next generation of software, we think the next billion-dollar company will be built on Browserbase's infrastructure. So I spent a lot of time helping early-stage founders build their companies, figure out what to build, hopefully using our product as a layer underneath to help power it.
And who's the ideal ICP who usually buys Browserbase and pushes it up in the organization?
So we are infrastructure, right? And that means that developers are often the first person who's touching our product. But more and more in 2025, everybody is a developer. Because you can use AI tools to build software, the product manager is often the one who's bringing in new capabilities or saying, we could go do this thing. Or even CEOs. For smaller companies, I've seen CEOs come in and say, I think we could build something really special here. So it really is a range of people, but oftentimes the developer is the first person who's heard of Browserbase. And that's because we built great software infrastructure, we built great frameworks, and we spend a lot of time with developers as they're the ones that are kind of building software that runs at scale that really benefits from Browserbase the most.
Developers are always challenging to market to, like developers are challenging to, because they're almost like, they almost like don't like marketing developers. They're like a hard group to usually to market to. And what works for you guys for customer acquisition, Paul?
Well, I'm a developer myself, so I completely agree. It's a tough segment to go sell into. And that's because you're selling to a pretty smart group of people, right? People who are very busy, and there's not enough developers in the world right now. So every developer, they're generally pretty time poor. They don't have a lot of time to listen to your sales pitch. They want the details straight. They don't want to hear any BS. They want to know exactly what this thing does. And if they waste time building something that doesn't actually work with your software, you lose them forever, right? So to sell to developers, we think a lot about being very transparent about what we can and can't do, being very clear on how you can start it, not a lot of marketing fluff around it, and really focusing on everything that makes it easier for a developer to integrate and try and use our product. We think about the moment of magic. When you sign up for Browserbase, the first thing you see is actually code on the left and a run button. You can actually play with the code without even leaving our website, so you can understand how this thing works if you want to try using our infrastructure. So every part of our product onboarding is oriented around the developer. And that's why we built Director AI, because Director AI is a completely separate product that enables non-technical people to get started. But we didn't want to alienate our developer base, because those are the people who really do have the highest likelihood of building high-scale applications with Browserbase. So we always focus on the developer first. And then also, as more people become developers in 2025, we think about ways to enable AI agents or AI models to know how to use Browserbase better. Copying a prompt to start implementing Browserbase is a new way to get people to get started. And we've been seeing, thankfully, that AI has been recommending us in their results. We've seen a pretty significant percentage of our signups have come from AI referring us, saying you should try using Browserbase to solve that problem, which is something I could have never imagined 5 years ago, that AI would be suggesting our company as the best browser infrastructure company for AI.
That's cool. And you guys have self-service, but you also have the demo request, right? So that way the customers have options whether they can, use it themselves or to get a demo. Any learnings from this, Paul? Like, what are customers usually choosing? Which option do they prefer? And what are some things you learn from giving these two options?
Yeah, we have a product-led growth and a sales-led growth motion. We have both of them. We have a self-service product-led growth where you can sign up and never talk to a salesperson at all. But we also allow people to skip that process and get a demo. And I think the traditional advice is that product-led growth and sales-led growth, you have to pick one or the other. You can't be good at both. I think that's complete BS. I think you can be great at both. You could be an amazing product-led growth company and an amazing sales organization if you are able to execute well on both of them together. And the way we think about this is that, for our product-led growth customers, they may sign up, use the product. They might not need to talk to a salesperson. They can go scale up on their own. But of course, at a certain level of scale, they're going to want to get volume discounts. They're going to want to have more support or priority access to features. And a great salesperson then will be able to help them build the relationship, navigate to the right people within the company, and really help be their champion within Browserbase to be a very successful customer of ours. And sometimes some customers just know they're going to get to that point. So they may go directly to sales to start the relationship right away, as opposed to waiting after they've already integrated. Maybe they want to upfront some support, get help from our sales engineering team, get help doing a POC process and justifying, maybe a bigger discount right away. So both paths end up to the same point. You're a customer that's using a lot of our product and deserve to be deeply integrated into our company. Now, the way you go down that path, whether via a sign up or via a sales-led conversation, either way works for us. We do see a lot of our customers come from the product-led growth side. The majority of our signups are self-service signups. But the majority of our revenue comes from the sales-managed customers, the people who have contracts. So I think it's kind of interesting. You can't view them as one or the other. I view the self-service side as a pipeline to some of these larger at-scale customers, because when you become a significant customer of Browserbase, we give you a lot of attention. We really want to make sure you have everything you need, because you're making a big bet on us. When you use our infrastructure to power your product, you're putting us right in the critical path. So we want to make sure we give you every resource possible to know what we have going on internally, what's coming up next, and how we can best support your business, because we know that we're enabling a big revenue driver for your business if you're using Browserbase.
Well, Paul, I'm so grateful that you came on the show, shared the browser-based journey, shared many of your valuable lessons. Is there anything else you'd like to say to our viewers before we log off?
Yeah, the last thing I'd say is that, whoever's watching this, you can build some very powerful things with AI today. You can build software that's going to do work for people, for your employees, for your customers. There's much more that's possible than you can even realize, and we see it at the front lines here at Browserbase every day. So I highly recommend you trying out our product. It's called Director.ai if you're not technical, to see what you can automate with AI right now. And we'd love to hear your feedback if you try it out.
All right, Paul. Thank you so much for coming on the show,
Thanks,
man.
Vlad. Really appreciate it, man.